Hi everyone and welcome to my channel Heartcore Healing. My name's Sue Quigley and today is Friday the 31st of March. So in the reading today I'm going to be looking at April. We're going to be having a look at what energies are going to be present, what we can expect, but more importantly, what can we do? What do we need to focus on? Because of course, as I've explained before, Heartcore Healing, this channel is all about the self-work. It's all about what we do inwardly. It's all about our own healing, because we know that when we start here, when we start with the Heartcore, it positively affects, it positively has an impact on not just ourselves, but everything else around us. So when we sit and look at what's going on outside of us, we can help influence that by just making positive changes to ourselves. And of course, we know this is an extraordinary year. There's so much going on, so many shifting energies, so many shifting timelines. Nothing is defined, nothing is definite. And we are at a choice point as human beings in our own evolution. This is where we are choosing which path do we want to go down. So let's look ahead, let's see what we can do, let's see how we can get ourselves ready and raise our own consciousness and awareness to be accepting to the change, to feel it positively. So where do we start? Well, as I was getting ready to read about a week ago, I was already starting to get information coming through. I channel information from my guides, but also I just see things like that. I can read into symbols and just am able to interpret the messages that are coming through. And every time I thought about April, all I got was a picture of an ocean. And I know that blue, the colour blue, is really dominant and important for April. Now, I did question myself because, of course, drip, 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 little April showers and all of that about the rain. Was I just influencing it myself? But no, it kept coming back. So there's the feeling of being all at sea, because the vision I got was an ocean that was permanently moving. There was momentum. It was very fluid and flowing. I won't say it was choppy, but there was just a lot of movement. So we're going to be feeling a little bit all at sea. And also we're going to be feeling our emotions rise. Water is going to be very important, and water is representative of our emotions. And again, the colour blue. Now, when I see colours, I have my own interpretation of them. They give me different senses and feelings. So although I know there is a generic meaning to the colour blue, for me it means, for this month, it means about being in motion. It is about allowing ourselves to be free flowing, being able to adapt to the changes that are coming up and allow ourselves to be like water, that we can go with the flow. So think of ourselves as just moving in to adapt to the movement in front of us, that we can allow ourselves to free flow and not be too rigid. Doesn't mean we have to be accepting of things that we don't like or don't want, but it does mean that we have to be a bit more flexible, just in order to not be stiff when we come up against things. When we need to be changing, and this month is a great month for change. It's where change is going to start happening to us, and it could be really, really subtle, but we need to be accepting of it and just allow ourselves to flex a little bit. Blue is also coming through as a calming colour. So if in your meditations or your quiet moments you want to think and bring in the colour blue, it's going to bring a calmness. It's going to start bringing in healing. It's an adaptable colour as well. The word adaptability, so that goes with free flowing, in that we need to be able to allow ourselves to just be a bit more flexible and adaptable to what's happening. I'm also minded to say, because we're not aware of everything that's going to be coming up, and we have to prepare that there will be some surprises, and that when we're not prepared for something, sometimes something better than what we could ever envisage can come in. So if we open our minds to be accepting of whatever wants to come in, then there's more chance we're going to get something that's bigger and better than we ever imagined. Before I started to read as well, I decided I'd draw a tarot card just to see what the symbology of the tarot would bring us, what the mood was going to bring. And it was quite interesting. I ended up pulling a card and then looking on the bottom of the pack because I was just drawn to do that. And interesting, as I said, we're all at sea and we've got water for this month as a symbol, which is again all about emotions, heightened emotions. And the cards I got were both cups from the tarot, which, as we know, represents our emotion. The first card, the overall theme, is wonderful. Look at that, 9 of Cups. 9 of Cups. What do you want? What do you wish for? You know, my last video I was talking about, you know, being open to things coming in. Did I? Or have I just made that up? But this is about wishes. This is about what do you want to come in? What timeline do you want to choose? I think that's what I was doing in my last reading. It was that we're at a choice point. So we're at a point of choice. What do we want to choose for ourselves? What feels right? Instead of choosing something for somebody else or choosing what people expect us to do or just falling into line with everybody else, what do we want? The 9 of Cups for this month, for April, is a really abundant choice card. What do we want to wish for? What do we want to start to bring in? Because when we're right at the point of choice, in this moment of massive change for us all, then we just want to start planting those seeds. So we start thinking about, what do I want me to be? What do I want for me? What's going to do me good? What have I always wanted or wished for or felt like doing and I haven't yet? We can start thinking about those things. And what fell into place nicely as I was bringing in that card is that at the bottom of the pack was the Ace of Cups, which is all about new beginnings. So maybe there's a fresh start for us all. What do we want to bring in? Knowing that it's an abundant universe. What do we maybe want to start thinking about? What do we wish for? Our emotions are going to be heightened this month. And again, I keep getting the image of the ocean that's changing, that's moving constantly. So that feeling of being all at sea is going to be really, really normal. So don't get too worried if throughout the rest of this month you start to feel a little bit up and down. You're feeling like you're all over the place. One of the things that might be going on as well is you might start to feel not as if you've lost touch with reality, but there's a definite sense of things don't feel as solid as they used to. We know that time is changing. We can all feel it. And I mean, I know it's quite normal for us sometimes to say, you know, you catch up with old friends and you find yourself going, oh, time's just flying by. But from conversations I've been having, I know it's not just me, that time really does seem to have changed gear. That time definitely seems to be slipping and getting quicker. And I don't know about you, but some days I'm not even sure what day it is. And the other day I woke up and it felt like the concept of the days and the weeks seemed really odd. It's as if I couldn't quite grasp it. You know the way sometimes you have a dream and in your mind you know what the dream is, but if you try and articulate it, you can't get the words and it doesn't make sense and it feels like you're trying to grasp mist or something. You can't quite grab it. It felt like that. I wasn't even sure what day it was, and then it felt weird that it was a day. What day of the week is it? I had a real sense of like a time slip almost, but also a question that arose in me was like, what is time? What is this week? Why have we called days? You know, it was all that kind of weird thinking that happens within milliseconds. You know, you get lots of thoughts all at once and it just seemed really odd. And then I was back into being me and being the human that understands the days of the week and the 24-hour clock. But you might be sensing that as well. Things are changing. Things are slipping and sliding and moving. And this is where our flexibility and adaptability needs to come in. We don't need to get too dramatic about it. We have to sort of gently steel ourselves and go with the flow a little bit and be really curious about it. That's fine. But we don't need to overanalyze it. Just move with it. And if your emotions are heightened, as I say, just let them go, because I think there's a lot of energy changes, and sometimes things are coming up to be released. Sometimes we can feel great in 1 minute and then the next minute we just feel really down or really miserable. Don't get analytical about that either. Just let things move. As the energies are moving, it's moving us. And we are mainly water. This is why we get so affected by the moon, and why the moon affects, the water within us. So we can start to feel a little bit all at sea inside, and that's because things are moving, energies are moving. So as we move forward, what else can we expect? And I'm going to be using the Wisdom of the Golden Path Oracle cards. They felt like the right choice deck to use for reading ahead for this month. So we already know we've got the movement of the ocean. So let ourselves feel a little bit all at sea, but go with the flow. We can use the colour of the ocean. We can use that beautiful blue to help balance us and bring a bit of calm, but also help us to adapt and be flexible. Blue's going to be a very good colour for April. The creativity card. And creativity is linked so closely to emotions. But also this comes in as a wish card, again, coming on the back of the Nine of Cups with abundance. What do we wish? What do we want to create for ourselves? What do we want to create for our future? How do we want to live our lives? So start to delve into that creative spark within you, because this is the month where we get to create. And I say, when we do things like this, when we have like a wish list or we want to daydream, we must understand how powerful they are. I know as youngsters we were told, not to daydream, and that things were imaginary then, and if we imagine them, they weren't that important, but they absolutely are. There's so much power in daydreaming when we set those dreams in motion, when we set our wishes in motion, when we use our imagination to bring information forward, when we create our wishes of what we'd like things to be. Using the power of our imagination when we're sitting in meditation, gosh, I feel like I'm speaking in rhyme, then we create something really powerful. The power of the mind to create, and we put that power into our energy field. And this is the power of manifestation. This is how things are manifested. When people talk about the law of attraction, it has to start with the thought. It has to start with the feeling. What do we want? How can we create the sort of world that we want? How do we create this brighter future for ourselves? How do we create the sort of people that we want to be? It all starts with our intention. So let's set our creativity spark alight. Start to think about, what do we want? What do we want for ourselves? How do we want to be? How do we want to live? What is the world that we want to be in? What do we want to create from that? I've just got that saying from Little Acorns. The big oak tree grows from that. And that's how just putting the seeds in place, just planting those seeds this month. And the seeds are usually just that spark of a thought. How does that thought make us feel? And we can just start setting things in place. I know sometimes people talk about the law of attraction or the power of manifesting, and they just say, I don't really believe in it. I wanted this to happen and it never did. And usually when you delve a little bit deeper, you find out that, I usually find out that the feeling wasn't right in the first place. So you sort of went into it half-heartedly, or you thought, it's never going to happen anyway. So you didn't actually believe in it. But the feeling that you had might not have been as positive and bright as it could have been. You certainly don't want to come from a place of desperation when you're putting a wish out into the universe. But also sometimes because we're not entirely clear on what it is that we want, that we haven't got it in our minds completely what we want it to be and how we want it to make us feel. But the main thing is that people think it doesn't happen quick enough. And that's where we can unpick ourselves. There was a wonderful analogy I heard once, that if you plant a seed and cover it over, it doesn't grow by you digging it back up every other day just to see if it started to grow yet. Because that way you kind of kill the seed, because you're taking all the richness of the soil out just to have a quick look at it. It's the same way. What do we want to create? What are our wishes? How do we want things to be? We start putting them in place now. It might be a while before we start to see those seeds sprout and emerge into our dreams, into our hopes. But as I said, we mustn't underestimate the power of our thought, but also the fact that we have choice. So what do we want to choose? Which way do we want to go? Yeah. Oh gosh. So yeah, sorry, looking ahead. Change. We know this. Change is definitely afoot. Change is definitely happening. Do you know, I was going to say then whether we like it or not, but I don't quite like saying it like that because it almost seems like a threat. But I think it's something that we have to be accepting of, that things are going to change. But don't fear the change. Don't fear what's happening. Don't fear the change that's coming in. But allow ourselves to embrace it. You might think, but I've got everything I want now. I don't want this to change. I like what I've got. But that is coming from a place that things cannot get any better. And I know sometimes when we've got what we want, we don't want it to change because we're worried it won't be as good as it was then, or we'll lose the love and the loveliness that we've got. But again, I say that's because you can't imagine it being any better. But imagine if it was. Imagine if you're totally happy now, but imagine that happiness if it went up a gear. Imagine if your love went up a gear. Imagine if everything you've got at the moment just went up a gear. How much more happiness, more joy, more love that could bring you. So don't fear change. And the other card that was right underneath it, and I feel is for us as well, is wisdom. We need to trust the wisdom that we have. We need to trust that part of us that has always been, always is, and always will be. That soul part of us, our consciousness that has been here many lifetimes, if you believe in lifetimes, has been in many dimensions, and has the wisdom of all that we know and all that we need to know. We would just trust it. That part of ourselves that is all wise and all knowing, that intuitive part of us that just knows. And it doesn't come from a place of intellect, it doesn't come from up here, it comes from inside us. It comes right from our heart centre, comes from our gut. You know, all along the spine is the nervous system. And it's alive with energy. It's alive with senses. So doesn't it make sense then that we receive information through all of our senses, but that we have knowledge within us outside of our brain? It doesn't just, wisdom and knowledge don't just come from our brain and our minds. The whole of our body is like a body, a channel of wisdom, if we would just allow ourselves to tap into it. So if you're sitting in a meditation or just taking a quiet moment for yourself, just ask yourself a question. And ask which part of your body you should go to for the answer. And just see where it takes you. And now you have to be deeply relaxed for this. You have to kind of switch off the common sense and logic and just allow yourself to settle in to your body. Just sit in your body, be aware of being in it. And if that sounds a bit odd, believe me, I've met loads of people who are totally disconnected from their body, who are living just purely from this space. Allow yourself to come away from the intellect and sit in your body and ask, what do I need to know? And just see what comes through. Just see. And you might be surprised. So as we're working our way through April, we know it's going to be a month of change. We know then to go with the flow. We know to expect some emotions that are going to be a little bit all over the place, but that there is a general direction of travel for us all. Knowing at the moment that time is a bit weird, we're just going to allow ourselves to go with the direction of travel. And it will be interesting if you talk to other people. It's amazing how on one level we're all finding ourselves in the same space. Our lives might be very different. We might be doing different things in our lives, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally, we're finding ourselves very much having similar experiences and in the same space. And that's because we're all being gently moved along the path. We're all being moved along towards this change in the future, this shift in our energy. And as I was feeling, I wanted to talk then about community, and I wasn't really sure why. But the next card that's come up is cooperation. So I think on the back of what I've just said is finding other people in the same space is you don't have to go it alone. Don't be an island. Don't be an island. Don't be too alone in your ventures. If you can reach out to people, start sharing your experiences, start sharing what you feel about things, I think you're going to find there's a commonality. And it's almost as if I think we're generally being shifted to start spending time with people that we wouldn't normally. You know how we gravitate towards what we think of as like-minded people? I think energies are encouraging us to reach out to people that we wouldn't normally, reach out to groups and communities that we wouldn't normally be with, because we might think they're not quite on the same wavelength. And we might find ourselves really surprised by how much commonality there is, or how much we can share, even if we don't exactly have the same sort of shared likes or have the same opinions. We can still share that space. Now, isn't that interesting? Because I know I'm not alone, am I? That the world can seem very full of conflict at the moment, that everybody feels polarised and at each other's throats because it's as if we can't have a healthy debate about anything. It's like one side will not agree with the other and they just clash all the time. And actually, I feel we should start creating the spaces where we all come to the table, where we all have different opinions and beliefs, but where we can be respectful of each other's and in a calm environment are able to speak what we feel we believe in, what we feel our opinion to be in. Because in those shared spaces and in that calm and accepting environment, we can start to understand a different opinion. We can start to feel a compassion for people that have differing views to us, but also an understanding of where everybody's coming from. Creating those, I want to say, safe spaces where we can cohabit, where we can live together. And I'm talking about on the planet. We don't necessarily have to live in the same house, but where we can share spaces with people who have different views to us, and we can talk calmly about them. Now, I don't want that to trigger anybody. Of course, there are some people with extreme views that we think perhaps we're never going to share those spaces with. But I think it's starting to, again, sow a seed where we want to start creating spaces where we can share opinions with people who perhaps differ from us in their outlook on life. That we don't have to, I'm going to use it. We don't have to boil the ocean. Very interesting that came through, and the ocean is very much the symbol for this month for me, for April. We don't have to try and get everybody in a room all at the same time, but we can start where we're at. We can start with more accessible people. But cooperation, for me, is coming through to say, this is where we start accepting others who are different to us, where we start accepting and acknowledging that we may not have the only truth. Because by listening and understanding other people, we start to get a greater understanding of ourselves. And so this is about cooperation. This is where we start to bring cooperation into our lives, where we start to look wider than our own beliefs and opinions. It doesn't mean we have to change our minds, but we need to be open to others. We can't create a more peaceful environment if we don't allow all the voices to be heard. And yeah, sometimes it takes real understanding, real resolve to sit and listen to somebody else's view if it's a view that you really feel quite opposed to. And it doesn't mean we have to change our minds and agree with them, but sometimes when we open ourselves up to a different opinion and hear somebody else's point of view, we can just start with a level of understanding. I'm feeling really strongly that as we move through April, this is going to become really apparent in the third, fourth week. The energy of wanting to cooperate, the energy of wanting more community, the energy of wanting more understanding. And that's understanding for ourselves. We all want to be understood and heard. And by us offering that to other people as well. It's interesting, since I started the reading, how my energy has shifted, how I'm feeling. When I started, I felt very much, when I started off talking, I felt really quite up and energized and just wanted to get the information out. And as I started talking about the cooperation energy, the energy of cooperation, my energy started to shift and start to really become quite calm. And it felt slow and gentle. Yeah, really calm. I think that's the energy that we want to bring forward when we look at listening and understanding others. Wisdom has come up again. So we definitely need to be listening to our own wisdom. The card Jade Mountain. Now I'm not going to backtrack, but I know for me, when Jade Mountain comes up, the card in this deck, for me, is again all about wishes. All about what do we want to have happen. And there's also the energy of true possibility. So this isn't pie in the sky wishes. This isn't, oh, I hope I can get this, that and the other. This is about real. That doesn't really make sense, does it? This is about real wishes. This is about the fact that there's every possibility. Now more than ever is such an abundant time. I'm being drawn back again to the energy of the Nine of Cups. This is a real abundant time for us to be laying things down, for us to be planting seeds. And it's all about the heart space. It's all about the energy of love. It's all about our emotions, but coming from our heart. Coming from the right place, coming from a good place, sitting in the energy of love when we start to make decisions, when we start to make choices, sitting in the energy of love when we want to go into cooperation, when we want to think about community, when we want to think about people with different views, when we want to create a space where we can all talk in peace. These are real wishes. and hopes and dreams that are absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. But we have to, I don't want to say we have to really want it, because that sounds like something off the X Factor. It's all I've ever wanted. But we have to know why we're choosing it. We have to choose it from that place of wisdom, from that place of knowing and understanding, from that wise space. So how do we complete this reading for April? Where do we want to go next? What's coming up? Trust. Absolutely trust. Back to Jade Mountain. These things we want, to wish for and hope for, our dreams, we come from the right place, and we absolutely trust that there's every possibility for them. But the card is I am truth. This is about knowing who we are. This is about the fact that we have already begun that journey of thinking. When we start to think about what do we want, we can't help but come from a place of wanting to know who we are. When we start to really sit and think, okay, if I could have anything I wanted, if I could wish for anything, if I want to make a choice about which path I go down, what do I want that path to look like, where do I want that path to take me, then when we're thinking about all of that, we have to then go to right inside ourselves and think, and who am I then? Who do I think I am, and who do I want to be? And actually, who am I? What is my truth? I am the truth of who I really am. And when we get to that space, when we sit in that space, we can start to bring forth the ideas, the mind, the dreams, the hopes, the wishes about which path we want to choose, which path we want to go down. You know, what do we want our brighter future to be? What do we want for us? What do we want for the world? None of these are trivial thoughts, you know. They're not whimsical. It's knowing who we are and where do we want to be. And this month, April, is really important for us to start laying those seeds, putting those foundations down, laying those foundations, planting those seeds, and almost letting them go once we've put them out there. But knowing that we return continuously to our own place of wisdom, our own place of truth, and start sitting with that a bit more. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to come back probably about halfway through the month and see what's coming up next, and seeing what's arising. Carry on sending me messages telling me how you're feeling about it, what's happening for you, if there's anything in particular you'd like me to read on, particularly with an emphasis on the self, or anything to do with the colour energies and things like that. But yeah, let me know how you're getting on, and let's make our way down the river together. Let's swim this together and see how we get on. But yeah, wishing you lots of love and luck. It's going to be an interesting ride throughout April, but we can do it. So I'll see you on the other side. Bye now.